Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of VCTV. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott, and we are here today to speak about fundraising, as we do all day, every day here on VCTV, but very particular around social media and how to leverage social media for your fundraising efforts, and if and how and where and what platforms are being used. And as investors, which ones are we using, but also which ones are up and coming that we may want to start using, and entrepreneurs how thinking about how social media and the world of social can help you in growing your business and also building relationships with us as individual investors as well. But before we get started, a big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you're liking what you hear today, click that big red subscribe button down there to tune in all day, every day to all episodes of VCTV as we bring the best and the brightest from around the world to share with each and every one of you their thoughts and insights and on the ground perspective of what's happening in industries, technologies, and regions around the world. And if you'd like to be on a show like today, whether as an investor to share your thoughts, do reach out to the team and or myself, and we'd love to find that right spot for you. But entrepreneurs, what better way to end the year than start the next and joining us here on on LATOKEN's VCTV to share your company product or service with us as investors to get real-time feedback, exposure to our live audience, and build foundational relationships with each and every one of us. Reach out and we'd love to find that right spot for you as well. And last but not least, that team. A big thank you to the LATOKEN team and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle, and let's go ahead and get introducing to our wonderful, wonderful friends here at VCTV who join us on a weekly basis to share so much insight about not just technologies, but also what they're seeing happening as investors. First and foremost, the man with many hats, Jose, welcome back.
Thank you, Carl. I'm really excited to be here today again, once more, and to be part of this trio VCTV setup today. So my name is Jose Graca. I've been a serial entrepreneur now for quite a long time, eventually rolled in as a business angel for almost 3 decades now. I became a VC. And I've always been in both sides and different hats. I've done mentoring, I've done some consulting. I also have done advising for government and for other venture capital companies, especially in this area that I have expertise in, which is the business inclusion area. And yeah, today this is a topic that I really love because it has everything to do with what we do more or less. So I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you, Kyle.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Jose, as well. I mean, social media, again, it's a very popular topic, and also fundraising through social media, which we're going to dive into, is much bigger, I think, than some people give it credit for. But we're going to hold that as the grandmaster and the wizard, the magical wizard of artificial intelligence and quantum computing
Hey,
decided to
hey,
show up. And I'm here.
long as I'm not the Wizard of Oz, you know what I mean?
You are not. You are the wizard of artificial intelligence, my friend Gary Fowler. Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. No, I appreciate it, and it's great to be here. And it's amazing. I feel like we're part of the family here. I see you so much, and Jose, it's amazing. It's kind of nice at the holidays to see your friends. So I love it. So I don't know what it is, but it feels good.
That's all that matters.
Anyhow, my name's Gary Fowler, serial entrepreneur. I've done 16 companies. I've been involved in 2 unicorns. Click Software sold to Salesforce for 1.35 billion, and also Eva, which is my latest company, 4.5 years ago. I love artificial intelligence now, quantum computing, and that's because of VCTV. Because I was been around this quantum thing, and I started to write. I'm writing 2 books right now. And on artificial intelligence. I just published another article. I don't know when it was, Friday, I guess, on AI and cybersecurity in Forbes. So I love it. The world's changing. AI is the new electricity. Quantum's going to exponentially help our lives grow and shape our existence in the future. And I'm excited. These are exciting times. And 2021, the one thing people say when you look back in time, it's always 2020. Not this year. I mean, there's only so much of this toilet paper stuff. I got to tell you, Kyle, it's crazy, but the toilet paper absolutely is flying out of Costco. I went to Costco and, I was really smart. I have 8 or 9 packs of toilet paper now that I bought up. I stored it up. I said, I'm never going through it again, but I thought you were kidding me. And it absolutely 100% they're down. on- I mean, it's funny when you have toilet paper, but when you don't, it's a whole different deal.
It's true. I mean, Gary, this might be a side business for you, just selling toilet
I
paper.
think we could do some e-commerce, just get all this PPP stuff, right? Fill it up and take rolls of toilet paper. I mean, listen, I personally went down through when it was really, really bad, and I bought marine toilet paper because I couldn't find like it's for boats, which is like, and it was like, I don't know, 10 times, 8 times more expensive. But I got the lousiest toilet paper you could ever imagine. Because you can imagine if it falls apart, it's not good.
To the entrepreneurs listening, look, we all have the same problems, but what you have to notice here is someone saw an opportunity to sell a product that is used for marina, I believe, is for boats and such,
Yeah,
and sell it as normal product and
yeah,
change their customer base. So if anything, take away from that little story that you can always pivot, you can always change, you can always offer the same product to different customers. So with that, to both Gary and Jose, today's topic, social media, as we're going to be talked about all over social
yeah.
media from that intro. But with that being said, fundraising through social. Again, I think this gets not enough credit today as how much opportunity and how many conversations start on social media. Before today's episode, I saw a very well-known esports team and organization doing a crowdfunding fundraise for their latest round and talking about this on social media. We've seen multiple investments coming through around TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and. The point is, these social media tools that we take for granted or we love and enjoy every day actually are a powerful connector. We know we get a lot of pitches on LinkedIn as well, and also AngelList and many other sites. But would love to hear from both of you your thoughts on how is social media in terms of fundraising? Is it a great outlet to fundraise on? Is it something that's helpful, not helpful? Jose, let's start with you.
So let's look at the problem of fundraising. The problem of fundraising is like this. Professional investors, they account for a very, very tiny percentage of all the amount. Okay, in essence, much less than 1%. I can even say it's not even a tenth of a percent today. So this brings a lot of pressure on the market and a lot of demand. And in essence, the only way or the only outcome that we have for this problem, they can go in two ways. One way is that, which is already in place, and that's everything we do with crowdfunding, right? So you're raising from, let's call it non-accredited investors, okay, and non-professional investors. So that broadens your spectrum quite a lot. But crowdfunding still is a very focused, very centralized way of raising funds. The way I believe it's going to happen, and not going to take a long time if it's not already in the case, is that people are going to raise funds from just ordinary people, okay, similar to crowdfunding. But instead of going to crowdfunding, they're going to set up their own solutions where people just can buy, let's say, a few shares. Let's say 5, 10 shares, 20 shares. Now that brings you into a problem later on in your fundraising agenda, because a lot of these professional investors, they don't want to deal, let's say, with 1,000 or 2,000 investors, or maybe 5 or 10,000 investors, right? But there is no solution on the market in essence that is going to solve this problem, because most of them, they don't want to get into pre-seed or seed stage. So it means that they want to get into, let's call it early stage or late startup, and when companies are more or less revenue generating. So people are getting in before that. And it also helps these professional investors in essence that it brings more, let's say, projects to a mature state that they can pick up later on and invest. So let's look at social media and crowdfunding in social media. This can happen in different ways, but in essence is you have a community. The community is your friends and family and your network, Now, remember that you already raise from friends and family because that's the first stage, but you do it on a one-to-one basis, right? And it's easy to understand that if you're on LinkedIn or on Facebook or similar, or even Instagram, that you have thousands of followers, you don't know them, so you cannot even say that they are friends and family. But what you can say is that there are people that you are connected to one way or the other. So why not raise funds from them? And I even think that a lot of these small investments, like call it pocket money investment, okay, could combine the amount of money that you need to raise that, get that funds raised and get that project further on the road. The last thing I want to say about this, there is still one other alternative, and that's where BizMoney is working on. And that other alternative is giving them an environment that instead of them getting out to fundraise those funds, that they're able to get into a very fast process in generating free cash flows. So it means that you can finance yourself out of those free cash flows, right? And that's another alternative that you have on the market, but it's quite new. So there are no solutions on the market besides BizMoney that really are tackling this issue. So social media, I would say, I welcome it, and try to get an SPV, a special purpose vehicle, because later on, if you don't do it, then the professional investors, they don't want to handle all these thousands of investors. And then you have a problem that you get stuck into the model that you're not going to be able to upgrade in further fundraising rounds.
Right. It's a good advice. And also just to add on that and kind of probably take a little bit away from Gary and Noble here in just a moment, but also it's a great place to meet investors too. I mean, especially in a day where you can't go out and have meetings, but even before that, social media was a great way to validate investors that might have been in your particular industry, that had the same ideas and mindset as you did, or the same vision, and to be able to build a simple relationship with them. I definitely have investors that I have raised from or have spoken to that I've built those relationships solely through social media, and then had the pleasure of meeting them in person. But again, to your point, Jose, you've got to be cautious of how many, if that's something that you want to be cautious with your company. But Gary, to you, same question. Social media, is it something that should be looked at as a fundraising tool? How is it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, there's no choice. We are in the digitally transformed era. There's zero choice. How in the world do investors get to know you? As soon as you start talking to investors, what do? They Google your name. They Google the name of your company. You better make sure you have a presence. And one of the challenges, I just went through this with a very well-known person in Silicon Valley. And unfortunately, he doesn't have a big online presence. And we were going through this. We've had numerous discussions about this, and now he started. But what happened is people would always Google him, and he tried to keep it low profile on LinkedIn also. And so as famous as he is, they couldn't get a hold of him, and they couldn't determine, what he really had done, et cetera. And, this guy's well known, but they couldn't really determine. It was like there were questions because they couldn't find him. So think about it. The investors need to have a 360-degree view. What does that mean? They're going to check Google. They're going to check LinkedIn. They're going to check Twitter and Instagram and maybe even Facebook. So don't have a lot of crazy pictures out there at your bar falling over, because they're going to look at it. They might even check your credit report, but they're going to look at every single thing that's out there to develop a 360-degree view of who you are. So what is really important? And I remember a couple of years ago, I was presenting at a conference in San Francisco for women in advertising. And I sat down, I was mentoring some of the female advertising executives that wanted to understand more about startups. And so we sat around this circle. It was a fantastic event. But we sat around and each one of us could ask questions. So every person had a question to ask the group. And so you got a lot of input. One of the questions they started to talk about, well, how do you develop, your as an authority in your field? Well, you got to start publishing articles. You got to start publishing articles. Well, how do you get in? Right? You got to go out and you've got to start working those contacts, not having other people PR firms do it because it's really expensive, but you got to start doing it yourself. And I got to tell you, when you start to do that, I've written 103 articles, and now I have 2 books coming out on artificial intelligence. You got to be looked at it on as an authority. So with all the startups, you've got to have that branding and that messaging throughout social media. It's got to be consistent, right? And it's got to really reflect where you are as a company. The other thing is, in terms of VCs, Jose is right. I mean, they're looking. It's hard for them to find companies today, really hard, right? So the more of a presence you have, the better it is for them because they got to do their job. They have mandates in order to deploy capital. And guess what? It's not easy today, right? Because now they can't go down to Hobie's in El Camino Real, which is where I've raised a lot of money and also given out money to be able to meet you. So what do you do? So this is like keep it simple, stupid time, right? And this keep it simple, stupid time is you got to have your presence on the web. If you don't, they have no way of being able to figure out who you are. You got to have great references to be able to give to, or ins, with just like on these panels that we have here, Kyle. Part of it is finding a VC that's friendly with another. And I got to tell you, it's happened to me several times here. That are friendly with other VCs that can help you out because it's a relationship network. And that's how a lot of it's done. It's done on trust. I remember one of the panelists said one time that they don't even look at the email coming in because they're inundated with deals. The way they get their deals is from other VCs that think that could be interesting for their company.
Absolutely, and we've seen a number of references in that, right, in the past as well. But it is again back to the game of relationships, and social media is an outlet to start building those relationships as well. And it's just amazing how we talk. I mean, you put it out there around writing articles, right? That shows the vision, the thesis, and how people feel or think about a particular topic. And it's a great way to understand who those potential investors are that you could start building those relationships with, and vice versa. As a founder, putting your thoughts and interests out there. I actually had, as a side story real quick before I come to Noble, Gary, to your point, I actually had my very first investor I ever raised from. That's actually how we met each other. I did an interview like this. It was written up in an article by a journalist. She was absolutely phenomenal. Years and years ago, and put this nice little interview together. And the investor found me by that interview and reached out to me and said, "Hey, I want to learn more about this company. I really want to invest." And the rest was history. And so it is definitely a two-way street that can turn into something. It's not guaranteed. And it's not just because of one. As Gary's mentioned, he's written hundreds of articles and growing, as we all have. It's a game of numbers, but that type of opportunity can happen to you. It's real. We're validating it here for you right now, entrepreneurs. So don't think we're just talking. This is actual stuff that's happened. And Noble, I want to come to you next. I mean, social media, same question. How are you seeing it? Is this a powerful tool for fundraising?
You know what? I run on both sides of the spectrum, both institutional and retail. So, frankly, we've been using social media for all crowdfunding for the last, I don't know, 6 years, 7 years. When we raised our first 400,000 for our tech company, for our gaming AR company, was 400,000 on Kickstarter. So the question isn't really, is social media a part of fundraising? It's the only way to fundraise, right? Between Start Engine, WeFunder, and all these crowdfunding platforms, in addition to just exposure. It used to be good enough to maybe hopefully get on television, right? And, you get your product validated. And a lot of people really search out, being on Shark Tank. One of our portfolio companies we've invested in, has been on Shark Tank. And one of their companies that they acquired later on has been on Shark Tank as well. But the explosive growth of investment is when they decided to do another round and utilize WeFunder and start marketing all over Facebook for their next round, their pre-Series A round. And so, there's if you realize it, social media has the opportunity to sell your product. And when your product is being sold and people are knowing about it, or even being pre-launched, then investors are interested. there's this whole idea that raising capital is just about begging for the money, right? And all of us have gotten those messages. If you only believe in my idea, it'll be the best thing ever. And I had a conversation with a startup guy, earlier this week, or excuse me, at the end of last week, and we were talking, and the whole idea was, oh, if I can only get blah blah blah, then I'll be good. And I said, nobody's gonna be interested in you by that point. You have if you are waiting for other people to believe in you more than you believe in yourself, and you're not willing to take out a loan, you're not willing to make a basic investment, you're not willing to do some basic marketing. SEO can be done for a few $100 a month. Basic social media presence, you don't have to be in all of them. You can pick one or two. If you're going to be focused on Instagram, do Instagram. You can do Pinterest, you can do Twitter. You don't need a super multimedia social media campaign, but be good at the one you decide to be on. And you can literally build up a energy and a buzz around your product and your idea that then attracts investors, because then you can show, you say, look, for the last 2 months, for the last 8 weeks, we've been pre-launching our product. We build the database. One of the things that, whether you love Robinhood or hate Robinhood, one of the smartest things they did was their pre-launch campaign. And their pre-launch campaign was very simple. If you don't want to pay any fees for trading stocks, bonds, etc., and you want to get involved, just fill out the email here and then forward this email to a friend or an acquaintance to get higher on the list to be entered into our beta. They brought on over 1 million people using that particular campaign on social media. They had no money to launch Robinhood, but they then took all of those people that were now registered and backlogged, and were able to then turn around and show investors, look, we have 1 million people ready to register for a online brokerage in which we figure it out and determine how to make it free for them, how to collect money from passing deal flow, how we're going to pay Apex a flat amount to do all trades. And that's how they created their business model. And so what a lot of people confuse looking for investors with is really truly marketing, right, of their business. You do not have to sell investors on a good idea if you've already made sure that the customer, your problem solution set, is already loving the good idea, right? And that you've even made an attempt at an MVP, or you've created a database at an MVP. So I think that oftentimes a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, and I was victim to it. I've been in it for 20 years. So in the beginning, I was very fixated on finding investors and not really focusing on the real, true, important part of the equation, which is finding customers that the investors then can help support with the expansion and growth. Investors are not a panacea for bad ideas. And I think that that's really how people misuse a lot of social media when they're emailing or reaching out or searching out on LinkedIn trying to find investors. They think that, okay, I'm going to go get these investors, and then everything that's been bad in my life is going to now be good. And that's not really quite how it works. It's, if you have a good idea, you've tested it out, you've got a handful of investors. We put out our Kickstarter. We had over 2,000 people who were interested in our project. That's a great starting point. So then we were able to go out and then raise and say, look, we did this amount on Kickstarter, which showed that there was a problem solution set fit. People are interested in buying the product. Now come in and invest in our company to help us expand and grow. And I think that's really where the true place of social media should be in fundraising. The money and effort and time spent trying to get this magical one bullet investor. And I've seen it happen. We've all seen it happen. People spending 6, 8 months, over a year trying to find an investor to launch this idea that they've got on paper, when all they had to do was create a truncated version of it and then see if 100 people would want to buy, or 200 people would want to buy. And I think that's really where the energy should be spent when we talk about fundraising. Go out, use your investment and your time on social media to get people interested in your idea, and then say to investors, hey, we've done really good. Look over here. We have 5,000 people who are organic. We have 50,000 people who are organic who want to buy our goods. And I think that chicken and egg scenario is so lost on so many startup entrepreneurs that it really, Gary said it a moment ago so clear. There's so many VCs are desperate for good ideas because everyone is fixated not on the business, but on the payday. And that's that instant gratification that's ruining a lot of things.
Right. And that's a good point, is validation, validation, right? And also thought leadership and amplification. And Jose, anything to add? I saw you shaking your head as well. Anything to add on to Noble's comment? Thank you, Noble.
I think that Noble made a very, very good description of what it is based on real facts. I have a few things to add to it that I think can add some value. I think first thing is that entrepreneurs need to understand that you are starting a pro bono business. That's the way I look at it. And that pro bono business is you're not going to get paid to build up that business, right? It's a dream that you have and it's a drive. And that's what you need to understand first. And if you don't understand that and you're not willing to make the effort to get there, and find the solutions just without even going to investors, right? To get it to that line that it is investor worthy, then you're not going to make it, because this is, tremendous, the amount of people that give it a try. So that's one point. And I can also give some suggestions on how some people solve it. For example, I always say that equity is the new cash. So first of all, is that if you have something which is exciting and you have an X amount of team members on board that you got it built up, and then you are able to move it forward, then what's the problem? Just getting people on board and pay them in equity. Because at the end, they're not getting cash up front, but they are getting cash an X time amount more at the end once you make it. And it's not uncommon that you get somebody on board that is going to buy equity, let's say for $1, and then suddenly 4 or 5 years later, they are selling it for 60, 70, 80, $100 a share, and suddenly you made like 40, 50, 60, 70 times or 80 or 100 times that cash. Now, where in the world can you get a job, right, that is going to pay you $1 an hour, and then after 3 to 5 years it makes you $100? No way. So the only way you are going to make real cash is kicking off that business, right? Get a team around you, bootstrap it as much as possible, get it investor worthy, okay? And at the end, you get the payout. Now, another alternative that I've seen quite successful is the following model. Once they are able to get to a beta version, I would say that's a very hard stage normally for most of the entrepreneurs. Once you get to the beta version, right, and you test it out, a lot of people kick it off by just giving sign up for $100 now, one-time shot, okay, and you have lifetime access. So, they do it, let's say, for a few thousand people, maybe 10,000, but look at it like this: 10,000 people multiplying by $100, right? You're talking about an X amount of millions, okay? So you're able to finance or raise the cash also that way. So if you look for alternative methods, like, okay, sell some equity, get people on board, you don't need to pay that payroll out. That's one way. The other way is further on. It's like, okay, so let's give a lifetime license, if you talk about software, and get them on board, and you raise another round. Now suddenly you come to a point which is like this: you have it running, you have the team, you are generating revenues, so you're investor worthy, because that's what they love to come into that stage. And you need to understand that until you get to that stage, the success percentage that you're going to get of funds, okay, is almost zero. It's very, very low. And if you don't understand that, then you're not prepared to hold on that time, then you're not going to make it. Now, there is a solution coming on the market, and I need to say that, which is BizMoney. And what BizMoney exactly does is that you can jump that whole process, okay, by just getting it speed up. So either you hold on all that time and you build it up, or you get a machine to do the job for you, and suddenly you have like 400 or 500 people workforce, which is computer power, to make it happen for you, and with an X amount of bucks. Because how many people do we have on earth that have, let's say, I would even dare to say they don't even have $10,000 to kick off that business, right? Mm-hmm. And if you buy one computer, one laptop, okay, a smartphone, and some internet connection, and some SEO, I think it was Gary that said it, or Noble, I'm not sure. Noble. Yep. Some SEO, and it sums up, right? I can tell you that those $10,000 is peanuts compared to what a real business building setup needs, especially if you're going to get into the payroll, In like 1, 2, 3 months, you're out of cash, it's done. And you need to understand that before you get ever to cash from investors, you spend probably more than a year. And Noble said it very good. Raising funds costs cash, but not only cash, it costs also a lot of time. It's not uncommon that people take 1 to 2 years to raise those funds.
Yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said there. And Gary, I want to come to you on further thoughts here in just a moment. But the magical, we started a company today and tomorrow we've raised capital is not always the case. It's a very rare situation, and some are very lucky. And if they have, it's generally because they're multiple time entrepreneurs that are just continuing investing, having investment from their network that's very close to them and or previous investors as well. But nonetheless, I mean, that fundraising process takes 3, 6, 9+ months for the average fundraise. No matter how big or how fast your company is growing, it takes time. You go from planning, preparing, to paperwork, to then going through and communicating with those investors, to then closing the deal. It can take quite a bit of time. I've seen it happen very fast. I've seen companies raise quite a bit of money in less than 2 weeks. But the point of that example is that the 3, 6 months previously, they were building and working through the process to be able to close that money. So there's a difference, just to clarify, closing capital and raising capital. Raising capital is everything. It's the whole process. Closing capital, that is something that can happen in a very short amount of time. But that's at the end. That's when you're closing the deal. Always be closing ABC for those for the reference out there. That's when you're actually closing it. Thank you, Noble, for the the grin. I appreciate it. It's the process that takes a little bit more time, and that's something you have to be prepared for. If you think it's just going to happen overnight, you're setting yourself up for failure as well. Even if you're crowdfunding, it doesn't matter as well. So, Gary, to you, any further comments on Jose and Noble's points?
I mean, we're, from my perspective, I mean, there's no other choices today. It's like, this is like simple shit, right? It's like, this is not hard. It's like, we're on Zoom, we're connecting, digitally. How else can you go down through and do it? And, this is also the opportunity of a lifetime, because not everybody's figured it out, Kyle. This is why you can still reach people, very, very high level people in short order, because people haven't figured it out yet. So now's an opportunity of a lifetime. This won't happen like this again, because they'll start to set up gates to be able gatekeepers to get in. They'll figure it out. There'll be technologies that kind of block this stuff out. So it is a great time, and people have not maximized the opportunity yet. So for the startups, get out there, get on to me. I mean, come on, it's simple stuff. If you want to sell something, you got to be visible. What do you want to do? You want to sell your company. You want to sell yourself. You got to build credibility. So just keep it simple.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're bringing up a good point. I mean, right now it's a different time than ever before. So this is a fair asterisk in the fundraising process. I will say that is that you now have the ability, and shameless promotion for VCTV, but in general, as any entrepreneur, you have the opportunity to talk to investors or individuals, executives, potential hires, thought leaders in your space than you ever have before. No kidding. All it takes is a cold email or a cold message. It's not as difficult as it might sound. It may not be as rewarding. You may have to send 100 or 200 of those messages to 200 different individuals to get that one. But guess what? To Noble's point about the fundraising process, it's very similar. You have to send a lot of messages, or you get a lot of no's before you get one yes. So definitely take advantage of it. And now people are more connected. I mean, I'm seeing more conversations happening on Twitter than I ever have before, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on all these social medias, because they're there. And just a fun little example, I don't know if everyone saw this over the weekend, but YouTuber Mr. Beast, I just want to show the power of social media. YouTuber Mr. Beast decided to create a little ghost kitchen, a little pop-up brand called Mr. Beast Burger, launched in over, I believe, 300 locations. All he did was send out a tweet, just a little message out into the world. And the power of social media blasted this nothing brand to the #1 app in the App Store throughout the US, $0 in marketing spend. I'm not sure the exact number that he did, but I know that they crashed their servers multiple times and had to upgrade them in mid moments because so many people were ordering food from this restaurant that did not exist the day prior. And so that's a fun little fact around just the power of social media and the amplification as of this moment here in 2020 as well. But I want to come to each of you. Oh, go ahead. No.
Yeah, no, so just real quick. So
Yeah.
so you said something, and usually I don't challenge you, Kyle, but you're absolutely incorrect. You
Okay.
said no media, no advertising spent. But Mr. Beast had already spent all that time prior and had already spent all that money prior. He
Fair
has
point.
hundreds of thousands of subscribers. It was already an investment made. And so what happens is it's like the 10-year overnight success story. People hear this, like a new entrepreneur is going to listen to that and say, okay, great. All I need to do is send out one tweet and people are going to go to my pop-up. And that's not what happened. What happened was he built a following. He had a relationship with his audience. He had connections. It was years, maybe last 2 years with the fastest explosive growth. So then when he made the tweet, it was an investment that already been done. Like we all sit here, Gary's, if Gary makes a phone call and connects you with $5 million, Kyle, right now, and he could for your project, it'll be easy to say there was nothing, he just made a phone call. He knew Gary and that was it. Gary's I'm not going to age Gary. Gary's umpteen years of experience, 2 unicorns led to that phone call to happen in that moment. You call Jose and you do the same thing. And so it's this constant idea that people see us right now in this moment and imagine that it was easy for us. That's all.
Right.
That's the only
No, thank you. That is actually a very good point. It goes back to everything that has been said, and calling out Gary again. I mean, Gary said he's continually written, multiple articles. We've been on. We'll just put a pin and say about 100 plus episodes. We'll just leave it at that. We've been in a lot. And I mean, each of you have continued to build your community, to build your thought leadership over time. And it did not just happen overnight, to your point. You have to work at it. You cannot come out of the gates as an entrepreneur and say, hey, I want capital, give it to me now and be successful. And if you are, congratulations, you have won the lotto and run with that ticket. But for everybody else, the other 99.9 repeating percent of the world, you have to put time and effort in. You have to build that community. You have to build that thought leadership. You have to show that you know what you're talking about and what you're building. You're absolutely right, Noble, and thank you for challenging me on that, because that's a very, very good and fair point as well. Because if you didn't, you weren't a thought leader, you weren't knowledgeable in your business, you didn't know what you were doing, you didn't know how to build a business, guess what? You're probably not going to raise capital anyways. How is and why would someone take a bet on you if you don't have any of those pieces in place as well? The harsh truth. You really have to do the work, however it may be, to be in that successful position. But with that being said, I want to come around to each of you around your respected industries and hear what's new, because social media is a buzzing. It's been blowing up this weekend and this week on everything that's happening, because we are at the end of the year. So, hey, if you haven't gotten an announcement yet, this is the best time to do it. So with that being said, I want to hear from you what's happening in your industries. And Jose, we're going to kick it off with you around fintech and financial inclusion. I mean, what's the latest and greatest quickly that you've seen happen over the past few days as we're coming to close here in 2020?
So business inclusion, in my opinion, is, I even dare to say that we are pioneers and leaders in this area, because it has not even come close to the public and the attention that it should have. It's a problem that is going on for hundreds of years. It's not something new, but unfortunately, society has not been able to come up with any type of solution so far. And the problem exists. You cannot turn it around. Gary knows it, and Noble also knows it, that there is a big gap getting these people to funding ready. And so I would even dare to say that 2021 will be for us the kickoff to show that what we are preaching, that is really possible, and we are going to onboard definitely thousands of people into this process, but we hope that we are able to get millions of people running into this process and simultaneously, which, if you look at accelerators or incubators, that's not possible. There's a limited amount of people, so you cannot onboard them in that fast of pace. And think about this, you have 45 million newcomers every year, global-wise. It's a huge amount of individuals, right? We could not handle them. Today, it would be impossible. But the market is there, and the market will grow because there's another 430 million unemployed, permanent unemployed, and have no solutions. So coming to Gary's expertise, this would never work if we would not have a bunch of AI behind it to make it happen, some machine learning, and definitely some areas in neural network. And fortunate enough, we don't need quantum computing to make it running. So that's a good thing. But definitely, if we get into quantum computing area, then I believe that so many things will change, including in business inclusion, that I cannot even foresee today what will be the new scenario, of that setup. But that said, to finish here, it is a point and a struggle that every country in this world has to cope with. There is no government exempted from what I'm saying, that we have millions and millions of people that struggle, that are part of society, and that have a huge impact in every country, and that nobody is able to get that problem solved. And governments are spending every year hundreds of millions, if not billions, to try to solve this issue, to get these people out of that down rate that they are, to get them up and get them generating some income, and they have not been able to come up with the solution. And really, it's time that we do something about it.
Well, and that being said, it's also an ecosystem. We've talked about this before, right? Government is just one piece of a very big puzzle on what it takes to build a thriving ecosystem around startups and around business and around economies in general. But to your point, you're right, Jose. There's a lot more work that can be done, and we're starting to see that, and hopefully we'll see a lot more aggressively to really turn on what you and BizMoney are standing for. And Gary, AI Quantum, you wrote this article, you dropped it on Friday. I had the pleasure of reading it. Congratulations. But also, what are you seeing happening in the past few days around these two industries and any others that's maybe getting you excited?
Yeah, so one of the things I want to say, Kyle, what I've seen in the last month, there's an interesting trend taking place, and part of it's because of shows just like VCTV, but I'm working with Africa. I'm working with all different startups in Africa. And by the way, they're very interesting, and a lot of AI. And so as we talk about this democratization opportunity, I'm actually seeing it now. I'm seeing these companies coming in from places that I never expected. Australia, right? From my perspective, I've not dealt with Australia that much, but I'm seeing incredible AI companies come out of there. So, I mean, Canva was a great win and a lot of visibility with, was it Melanie Perkins? But now the situation is I'm seeing them from everywhere. And I'm really encouraged because it means that jobs are being created and people are going to be able to feed their families. And so I like that in terms of AI. So quantum computing in the last 6 months, I've seen a real uptick in the interest in quantum. I've seen an uptick in the interest in AI and machine learning and deep learning. People, before they didn't really know what they were talking about. And now the situation, at least they can explain whether it's unsupervised or supervised. I see corporations, because I get contacted a lot from around the world that are asking for advice in terms of their AI strategies and what they need to do and what the world's going to look like in 5 years. But before you would hear it once in a while. So I don't know if it's because of all the visibility or what, but now I'm hearing it on a regular basis. So this platform of VCTV to get out and connect the investors and the startups is phenomenal. And this kind of community just works. This works because it's exactly, and I remember in the beginning when you first got started with this, so it wasn't so easy. But now, I mean, every day I get people from all over the world contacting me because of our presence here, and I really like it. So it's a great thing. We need as I said, the companies that utilize this digital transformation and platforms just like this, Zoom, and get integrated in the community are going to win. Get the visibility up. It's drastically important for you to do that become a thought leader. I had one of my billionaire partner, David Yang, told me, he said, it's very important to be looked at as a thought leader, because once you're looked at as a thought leader, things start to change. And so that's when we started. I remember with Eva, when I first put AI into it back in 2016, actually, we just were using algorithmic math, and then we started to do that, and everything changed. And so, but again, this is the future. So startups, look at artificial intelligence, look at quantum computing, use the resources wisely, get your presence out in social media, make sure people know who you are, build trust, and you'll have a lot more success and be able to really visualize and create your future.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gary. And Noble, last but not least, any quick thoughts on where AR, VR gaming, I mean, the NFT space, which I know you've talked about here, is just went to crazy, crazy lengths over the weekend. But any quick things you want to throw out of what's happening in those spaces for the audience?
Oh yeah, well, Jose said that all these people are unemployed and there's not going to be a chance for them to make money. I really do believe, without a doubt, that gaming is going to be the next kind of gig economy. To be honest, it's digital, it drives traffic, it builds on social media. We released a series of NFTs this last 5-6 days. We've had an explosive sale on them, and we're still continuing to grow. I was hyper excited at the direction we're going there. And so, that phase of it is 100% gain wise. NFTs are here to stay. That space is going to grow, and that's going to be an economy for people. AR, VR, the glasses are coming. People are going to start having 2021. This whole contactless, touchless world is not going away, regardless of vaccine or how many people receive it. And so the idea of us having to sit static like we are now to operate is just going to disappear. The idea of holograms or holographic imagery utilizing augmented reality is solidified. Quantum computing has solidified. A great article, by the way, Gary. Quantum computing has solidified that this is the direction we're going, in which we'll be able to visually see and process information, utilizing our computers to see each other. So it only strengthens the whole entire bet for the Oasis. It strengthens the bet that augmented reality is now going to allow our world to be accessed digitally. And then, more importantly, we're talking about thought leadership. When I started out, I literally started out homeless. And when I got my first gig working for someone as an assistant to a broker, I was about 17 and a half, almost 18. And I got my license as a commodities broker as 19. I learned thought leadership was key early on. I wrote several books. I wrote 7 books. I've been on Bloomberg. And to be frank with you, it's very difficult not to feel imposter syndrome. And I get it. A lot of people, especially startup entrepreneurs who come from hyper humble beginnings, it becomes very difficult for you to want to be that thought leader, because you're always questioning, are you the thought leader? Should you be the one, are there smarter people than you? But I can only say that if you want to succeed in the social media, in the thought leadership space, regardless of industry, you have to just stake your claim. And you have to at least talk about the stuff and be confident in the items Imposter syndrome is real. I struggle with it, have my whole life. And it's one of those things that if you can overcome that hurdle and really feel comfortable with having the ability to communicate your messaging and understand that it's not about you, it's about the people you're trying to help, your customers, your problems that you're trying to solve. Jose's mission is awesome. Gary's missions are awesome. Your missions are great, Kyle, and what you do for entrepreneurs and how you deal with startups and why you even started the show. But it takes a lot of mental effort to step outside yourself. And I think that, it's one thing to be harsh on the startups, and I don't try to be, but the goal is for everyone who's out there to really focus on the right things. That's all. So I got to go. I got to start my show now at 9. But
wonderful. And where can everyone find? Thank you, Noble. Where can everyone find you?
You can always find me on LinkedIn, Noble Dracone. You can send message to me on Twitter. Sometimes I get them like right away. Sometimes I don't. I'm not good. Like I said, my platform is LinkedIn. I say pick a platform. That's my platform is LinkedIn. But thank you guys. I really enjoyed being here with all of you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Noble. Thank you, Noble. Have a great day. Jose, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search for Jose Graca or search for BizMoney, and you can always reach me either for advice or help or consulting, whatever you need, and you're most welcome.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jose. Gary, last but not least, close us out. Where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, sure. You can reach me on LinkedIn, Gary Fowler, LinkedIn. You can reach me on Twitter. You can send me an email, gary@gsdvs.com. I'd love to hear from incredible startups that want to go global. Happy to help and happy to talk to you. Thanks, Kyle.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jose, Gary, and Noble as well. Appreciate all the thoughts and insights to you, our audience. This is validation right here that social media works, and social media and fundraising are a perfect combination. Reach out to our investors to continue the conversation today. Make sure you add context when you do. So where you met them, what you want to talk about, and why you're reaching out on their respective platforms, or take a risk. Try a different platform they haven't mentioned and see what happens. But with that, a big thank you to your audience for tuning in. Make sure you click subscribe. Thank you, Gary. Give us a thumbs up. Do reach out if you'd like to be on a show. Thank you, Jose. If you'd like to be on a show like today's to share your thoughts and insights around different technologies, industries, and regions around the world, along with on-the-ground perspective as well. And entrepreneurs, what better way to end the year and start the next than joining us on the virtual stage here at VCTV. In both cases, reach out to the LATOKEN team and or myself, and we'd love to find the right spot for you. Big thank you to that team at LATOKEN and to Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere online at Kyle Ellicott, along with all of our guests as well. And we'll be back here in just a little bit with